Welcome to the Toon. What is that? It's where the Georges live. Where's the Geordie? Someone that lives in the Toon. You've a lot to learn, Bonnie lad.
You mean tunes like Looney Tunes and stuff, like Bugs Bunny?
Welcome back to Matchday Matinee, where every week we combine our love of football and films to dive into the cinematic takes on the beautiful game. Thank you for joining us on this, our season finale of Matchday Matinee. My name is Mark Gillerim, and today I'm joined by the man who is counting down the days, if not hours, until his beloved Liverpool returns to the pitch. Ragev Sandhu, how are you doing today?
Absolutely, doing absolutely great. Waiting for, as you said, waiting for the season to start. Still chucking away, playing video games, watching a bunch of new shows, just enjoying life while we can in this quarantine. And I'm still taking it seriously, even though it seems like a lot of people are not. But yeah, no, just generally just enjoying life right now and doing all I can to keep busy.
Nice. So would you have been able to live with yourself if Liverpool was awarded the title, but it came with that asterisk, their first one since 1990?
Yes, I would have been able to live with that. Only because it's not a 3 or 6 point gap, it's a 25 point gap. And actually it was funny because a bunch of fans on social media, this is before I disabled my social media, were, making fun of Liverpool, saying, oh, you're always going to have an asterisk beside your name, always going to have an asterisk beside your name. I woke up the next morning and every single Liverpool fan on Twitter had an asterisk beside their username. It was hilarious.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. I love the camaraderie.
Cool. And also joining us is the man that will be receiving the Guard of Honor today for his trivia accomplishments, Adam Ducker.
Hello. How you doing?
Good. What are your thoughts on the Guard of Honor? I wanted to bring that up today. I know a few clubs refuse to do it. It's an interesting subject, and I'm not sure if Ragev will give you that honor later today. I might.
Oh, I will.
No, I think you should. I think teams deserve that respect, right? No matter who it is, whether rivals or not, like if someone's bested you over a season, yeah, you should clap them onto the pitch if they've won the title and you happen to be the next ones there. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, there's no need for pettiness or being sore losers. No, exactly. It goes around, comes around.
Really
Respect where respect's due kind of thing.
Exactly. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm good. Busy, as always. I say that every week, but that's life. It seems like I thought I would have more time with not having to commute to work, but it's been the complete opposite. That hole has just been filled with more work. So I'm sure you guys know how it is.
Absolutely. It's been crazy. I feel like I'm more busy at work now than I was when I was actually going into the office. I guess it's a heightened sense of productivity as well. You just kind of, I'm the type of person that, when I'm in my own space, I just kind of hunker down and I try to complete as much as I can complete. And I'm guessing you're doing a lot of the same.
Same, yeah. Taking on more every time I think I have enough projects, I get the offer for one more, and then I take it on, and then my wife gives me side eye, and then turns into a whole thing. But anyways, we have a banger of a film today. I don't want to keep our audience waiting anymore, because as our season concludes, the dream begins.
You think you deserve it?
I know I do.
From Touchstone Pictures.
It is now quite a day for this young man.
One man's extraordinary journey.
That's my son.
That's my boy, Santiago.
Is about
we are discussing Goal. Yes, this is the goal. The goal that's, a bunch of us were raised with in our childhoods. The one with Kuno Becker as Santiago Munez, who's an aspiring young footballer that's trying to make it professionally in the game of soccer. It also starts Alessandro Nivola as Gavin Harris, Stefan Dilian as Glenn Foy, who's kind of an abroad father figure for Santiago Munez, who's Kuno Becker's character. And then lastly, we have Anna Friel as Roz Harmlesson, who's the love interest of Santiago Munez. So great film. One we definitely, have seen many, many times. It's directed by Danny Canon, produced by Touchstone Pictures and Milkshake Films. The original release date was 30th September 2005. The runtime is 118 minutes. And, I just want to give you a kind of synopsis of the film without actually giving you any spoilers. So if I'm just reading off the top, amazing footballer Santiago Munez, an undocumented Mexican in Los Angeles, gets a chance to follow his dream of playing professional soccer. A talent scout with contacts in the United Kingdom spots him and offers a once-in-a-lifetime chance. If he can find a way to England, he can try out for the Newcastle United football team. After many trials and tribulations, Gavin Harris, a star player, takes young Santiago under his wing and helps him prove himself to his disbelieving father. So, guys, what do you think of the film?
Pretty good. It was it's one of those. Been a while since I've seen it, and it's more modern compared to some films we've watched, right? And it's got a high budget, and you can kind of tell, and it definitely benefits. We might talk about it later with how it was kind of made in partnership with not only FIFA but like Newcastle were all on board with it, and Real Madrid were kind of involved in it. So I think it definitely benefits from that. It's definitely a contender, which is why it was good that we left it till the end of the season.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, that's one of the main reasons I think why we picked this movie as a collective, was because we wanted to end the season off with a banger of a film, and one that leads nicely into next season when we discuss, because this is a trilogy. This is a gold trilogy, a trilogy of films. So this would be a nice cliffhanger to leave you for this season as we get into next season and start talking about the second and potentially the third one.
Yeah, it's definitely a late season contender. I think it had been about 5 years since I watched this movie, and oh man, it holds up so well. We'll get into it, but
it does hold up well. It's
I really love this movie.
Yeah, it was. So it was funded by Adidas. Funnily enough, I didn't know this.
Yeah. Which is why they ended up with Newcastle.
Yes, who at that time were apparently the biggest team in England under the Adidas banner, which is shocking. Because they weren't really that good.
You say that, I looked it up because I was curious. I was trying to remember. I knew roughly when this fell in the thing. So they had just, I guess when this got released, they had just fired Bobby Robson the season before, finished 14th. But the 3 seasons before that, they finished 4th, 3rd, and 5th. So it was just post that like Keegan time, and then they kind of dallied with a few other managers and ended up with Bobby Robson and were kind of challengers again. And then the season after this film came out is the year they signed Michael Owen from Real Madrid, which obviously didn't work out, but at the time it was a big deal. Like he signed for like £18 million. It was kind of a huge transfer. So they were a big team back then, and like before the Mike Ashley like decline, I guess.
Yeah, so the season, I'm just looking at the stats here. So this movie was released on September 30th, I think, 2005. So the season before that had just ended that May. They finished in 14th place.
Yeah, and that's the one where they fired Bobby Robson.
That's the one. And the following season, they finished in 7th. The season before...
not bad.
The season before, actually... when they finished 14th, the season before that, they actually placed in 5th, and they were about 4th. So actually, okay, culmination of the last 5 seasons. Before this movie was released, they finished 11th, they finished 4th, they finished 3rd, 5th, and then 14th. So a couple of good seasons there, Champions League places.
How big of a star was Robert on this team? Not at all. Because at that time I was... I think this is 2007, I want to say. So TFC had just been starting, and that was kind of like my intro to club soccer, right? Like you guys know, I didn't really watch before that. Like TFC Come to Town was my gateway to that. And then we received Laurent Robert, I think it was around 2009 for, I want to say like 3 matches, but he came in as this big signing from, the French signing from Newcastle as a star, right? And then he pops up in this movie here and there. Was he the star, like behind Shearer?
No, I think this is inherently, I don't think it exists now, but like a Newcastle thing. They used to call themselves the Entertainers from the Kevin Keegan era, and they played 4-4-2 quite a lot, and doggedly believed in having like 2 great strikers and exciting wingers. And I'm convinced they only signed Laurent Robert because he was French and he was a winger. And they previously had David Ginola, who was like a very exciting French winger. And I think that's the only reason they signed him, because they were convinced that he would be a great player who would like in that vein purely based on that. But he hung around for a while though. He was there for like 4 seasons.
I was gonna say he pulled that same wool over TFC's eyes then, because
there's an interesting fact about him. So he also played for Portsmouth for 1 season,
Hey.
And he made the exact same number of appearances for Portsmouth and TFC, but I think it's made 17 appearances and scored 1 goal in the league for both of them.
Wow.
Yeah, he had a wonder
Super
strike,
weird.
and that was it.
Yeah, and that was it, yeah.
Yeah.
But same thing, Portsmouth had a French manager, and we signed him because he was French, no other reason. And he didn't do the business, and then we sacked that manager, and he never played again.
Yeah, I don't have the best memories of Laurent Robert in a TFC kit. I think there was one time he scored a free kick or something.
Yeah, that was it. Like the wonder strike, and
That's
then
the
everyone
one. And that was
jumped on the
against-
bandwagon and then quickly jumped off.
Was that against Santos Laguna? No, that was too early. It couldn't have been.
No,
No.
Back then, we were only playing like
Yeah.
the Caribbean teams and stuff for these.
Yeah,
Wikipedia,
but never that far.
Wikipedia says Real Salt Lake.
Real Salt
He
Lake.
was,
Okay,
he
there
was
we
named
go.
man of the match in a 1-0 win.
Royal Salt
There we
Lake.
go. Actually, the two players that stand out on the Newcastle team at this time, definitely Alan Shearer and then Patrick Kluivert, I believe.
Yeah, because he
Yeah.
scores a goal later
Yeah.
on. Yeah, and they had a core of good English players. You see Kieran Dyer and Lee Bowyer, who
Yeah.
famously fought each other on the pitch the season after this.
Jermaine
Yeah,
Genius.
Jermaine Genius you see for a bit, who's like a pretty reputable pundit now.
Yeah.
So it was a good team. A lot of exciting like English players that didn't ultimately reach their potential, but yeah, pretty big names in that team.
Awesome. I want to kind of go back to towards the beginning of this movie when Santiago is kind of growing up in Los Angeles as an undocumented Mexican immigrant. And it's a struggle that we see quite a bit in the media now, especially with social media and just what's happening politically in the States. I think they were really true to what life is potentially like for somebody that's maybe facing those circumstances. So they're working, making ends meet, putting together money to buy, their own truck so they can run their own business. I felt like that was very true to life in a sense. And also when he plays soccer for that Los Americanos Jóvenes FC, which is his club team, I guess like a
The red
community
bus.
team. Yeah, like a community
Fantastic
team.
red bus, yeah.
Yeah, a community team. It's it was nice. It was nice to see where him starting off from those humble beginnings. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
You
it's good. And
get
they
this-
kind of don't belabor it too much, do they? They kind of rush through it. It's obvious he's got like 2 jobs at least, and his dad's
builds-
instilled like a good work ethic in him and stuff like that. It's clever.
Yeah, it builds enough of that like tight familial unit that you get the sense that there is this expectation of him to take over his father's business, and there also is the responsibility of him having to work 2 jobs in addition to playing soccer to provide for the family.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do get this, you see that sense of sacrifice even from the father that tells him you can't pursue your dreams because you do have to provide for your family, and because I think his mother left at a young age.
Yeah.
So it does fall on the father's shoulders to take care of the family.
Yeah. And his father says there's 2 types of people in this world. Ones that live in big houses and the others that clean the big houses and, do the maintenance of those big houses. So that was very interesting. And I know people personally that have an outlook on life like that. I mean, being a son of immigrants, knowing people that have an outlook of, hunker down, do the job, go home, feed your family, do it again the next morning, right? Whereas I think for us that are more second generation, we kind of dare to dream a little bit. So
Yeah,
that was
definitely.
really interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, with like my own parents, I don't remember them going on many vacations up until later on in life, right? Their whole thing was more pay off your mortgage before you do anything else.
Exactly.
I was just going to say, do you know what's interesting though? When I was first rewatching it this time, I was like, oh, this is terrible. He's not, he's looking down at the ball the entire time. And then I forgot that's kind of played into the plot. So that first time you see him, as good as he is, it's kind of weird because he doesn't take his eye off the ball once. And then as the film progresses, he kind of does start looking up and stuff, and it kind of becomes a plot point that he needs to start looking up. But yeah, you're right. Like he somehow magically jumps over all these players without taking it. I don't know how he knows where any of them are because he doesn't take his eye off the ball once.
Well,
He
his
just
coach
dazzles
said,
around them.
his coach for that team said everybody thinks that, his form is all wrong, and then that happens. And by that, he means he scores the goal. By the way, that coach looks exactly like Carlo Ancelotti with a mustache.
He kind of does it.
Yeah, I picked up on that when I was watching it this time around. I'm like, that guy reminds me of somebody. Like I've seen that look somewhere, and I'm like, wait, take away the mustache, and you've got Carlo Ancelotti. So yeah, that was cool. I did find in this movie a little bit that the accents and the mannerisms were maybe a little bit overplayed. So what I mean by this is when they were showing his dad speaking Spanish, or even himself kind of switching back between English and Spanish, it was a little bit over the top, like almost like a Cholo style.
It's East LA though, right? So
yeah, but it's like you dare to
possible.
dream, right? It was just like, and then the Chinese restaurant portion. So he works in a Chinese restaurant part-time, being paid cash, and the Chinese, that dialogue about like, you not Chinese was like, it was their attempt at humor. It wasn't very funny.
It was playful. You know what I mean? It wasn't meant to be like ha funny, but more that there's still an upbeat attitude among them, even though they are kind of in the trenches in the restaurant, putting in the hard labor, going from one job to the next. Like he still has that positive attitude. Like he hasn't been broken yet. Yeah. He still dreams and hopes, right, of being a waiter.
Yeah.
I agree.
During the scene that where he's actually playing for this community team, LAJFC, and he's doing all those flicks and beating the whole team, skinning the entire opposition team. This is when Glenn Foy, who's at this point just some random dude from the UK, from Newcastle, sees him and says, essentially he just says he's really interested in his skill, and he's going to arrange for a scout to be at a subsequent game that they're going to be playing. And that scout, by the way, that they showed is just so stereotypically what I think of scouts. It's not scouts, sorry, of agents. So,
Sean Pertwee's character, Barry.
Yeah. So not scouts, sorry. Yeah. So, So Glenn Foy is a former scout who tries to arrange for an agent to be at the subsequent game that Santiago is going to play. The agent never shows up. He's, in his LA pool overlooking the city. Penthouse, and I'm like, and this is exactly what I think of agents in this day and age. Like it's I don't know.
Glenn Foy was a former striker too, right? For Newcastle?
Yes.
Newcastle scout. And then, Sean Pertwee, he was not the star, but he was one of the main stars on Gotham. So that was the only kind of
Alfred,
content.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the only reference I had of him, where he's like kind of like really uptight and almost completely different from his character here. And it's funny, that show was created by Danny Canon, who's the director of this. So they kept that relationship.
It's also the narrator of MasterChef in England as well.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. That's where he's, I guess, most famous for, like, right now in the current time, I guess. Yeah. But he's been in a lot of stuff. He's really, he's quite a big name back home. Yeah. Before he got to the Gotham role thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Also drawing parallels back to a movie that we did previously, Bend It Like Beckham. It's the same kind of story. The father doesn't want, in this case, the son to go play football because he has a very clear life laid out for his son, as you mentioned before, Mark, about, you're going to take over my business. With Jess Bamra, it was that she was going to go become a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it is.
What's the name for it? It's not like it's a bookkeeper. What's the term? Solicitor?
A solicitor, yeah. A solicitor is a lawyer in England, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. But they have very clear paths laid out for their children. So I guess it's a common theme everywhere, right? Where it's like, the children's got to do what I've seen for them. And dreaming of making it professionally anywhere is just, it's pie in the sky sort of stuff. Actually, the dad's character actually says, like, keep your feet on the ground instead of your head in the sky. Which was interesting.
I never realized how much the Pele movie rips off of this movie. And it's Pele's life story, but there's so many scenes that are in this movie that Pele tried to replicate, and this movie just still does it better, even though I think there's a 5-year difference between them.
What scenes,
Well, just the father kind of telling him to
chat with him,
to stay in the custodial line of business and don't dream. What's the other stuff I'm thinking of?
Even the nature of the game, this game is no different to that tournament they play in Pele, right? And there's
kids in the street, and then
Santos is there.
Yeah. I mean, from some of the reviews that I was reading about this movie, it's a very typical rags to riches sports movie, right? In the same way that Pele is as well, and in the same way as many other movies are, right? You got it's pretty much down to a formula. You got this impoverished young adult or kid, eventually goes through the ranks and becomes a professional player and ends up scoring the winning goal. Spoiler alert, ends up scoring the winning goal in the movie, whether it's for a club or country, whatever it is. It's a very proven formula that I think a lot of movies have used, regardless of sport.
Yeah, and it's always quite one thing about this is it feels very truncated, right? Like it happens super fast. Like suddenly he's in Mexico, even though there's obvious time passes.
Yeah.
And I kind of think in this day and age, this kind of thing might have been a Netflix series where it's like, okay, here's a story and we can tell it in like 7 episodes that don't all have to be the same length. Versus back when this was made, if it was an American production company trying to be making it, it'd be like, okay, how many seasons can we flog this thing to death before he gets to his ultimate aim? It's interesting.
It's a very tight movie though.
Yeah, definitely is. It goes fast, right? Like we start from him crossing the border, and then 10 years later, and then pretty quickly he establishes that like no matter what he's going, he starts to save that money in that boot, and he's like, I'm definitely going to Newcastle. His dad steals the money from him, and then that's when we first kind of cut to Newcastle, right, where we see Gavin Harris signing for them. He's meant to be this great striker, and then. It's not long after that Santiago goes home and the grandmother feels bad that the dad stole his money to buy the truck. So she has bought the tickets for him for the whole way. He has to go San Diego to Mexico City he has to get the train because he has to fly from Mexico because he doesn't have a US passport.
Yeah, he's not documented,
Which is another thing that I know we have to suspend our disbelief a little bit, but it is one thing that kind of bothers me. He never would have been able to sign for Newcastle. Because it's like the English FA has these rules about non-EU foreign players, and you have to have played in at least 75% of your home country's senior internationals in the last like 3 years or something. And if you haven't done that, then you have to be in like the upper percentile of transfer fees paid, which he obviously wasn't. They just sign him on a free. It's one of those things like it's not a knock against the film, but you have to kind of try so hard to be kind of realistic as much as it can. Like they don't just throw him straight in the first time. Like he does have to slog it out with the reserves, which is full of like youngsters and players that kind of got no hope, that are just there to make up the numbers. Like it makes that kind of stuff realistic, but then kind of glosses over the fact that
the immigration
he's just Mexican. He's just Mexican and he's just allowed in because the border guy happens to be a Newcastle fan.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you need a visa to travel from Mexico to England.
I would have thought so.
Yeah, I don't think it's just like show up at the border, it's like being Canadian, show your passport and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But, who wants to deal with immigration in a fun movie like this?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was good. He gets to Newcastle eventually and then runs into Glenn Foy, who houses him, and that was very nice of Glenn Foy.
They do a really good job in this film of celebrating like England's geography, I guess. Like they do a good job of when he lands to London, showing off when he's on the train. There's like nice sweeping angles of like rolling hills. And then even Newcastle, they show off, there's all the bridges and stuff. They show off the art gallery. That's that big metal building they show off. That's actually in Gateshead, but they show that off and it looks nice by the River Tyne. Like they do a really good job of his 3 different parts of England, which I appreciate. Kind of made me feel a little bit homesick.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, this was a great advert for Newcastle upon Tyne. Like it looks nice. I want to visit it, right? Like
it is a nice place. Yeah, I spent a lot of time sort of just before this era because I had friends at university that lived in Newcastle, so went up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it is a nice place, just that some of them speak a bit funny. The ones that have never left, it's hard to understand them sometimes. Yeah, it's here where he says, "Welcome to the Toon." And then Santiago's like, "What's the Toon?" And it's like, "It's where the Geordies live." And he's like, "What are Geordies?" And they're like, "They live in the Toon." And it's like, what the hell?
Looney Tunes or something?
Yeah, he does say Looney Tunes.
Yeah, we get a great intro. When he's in the airport and you see I think it's the London Bridge.
Yeah.
And you think he's actually there and it zooms out. It's actually a billboard.
It's funny.
There's a lot of like well thought out shots. And then, when he's first approaching St. James Park and it kind of peaks around that building and you get that like beautiful epic shot.
Again, another stadium that's in like a city center.
Yeah. So awesome. But you really see things open up. Like when he's in LA, everything is so yellow and kind of cloudy and hazy. And it's almost like it's choking. Like it's almost weighing on the experience, right? And I remember that the movie was a bit yellow. Like you look at the cover and the marketing, everything for the movie, it has this yellow tint to it. And I was wondering, I don't remember the whole movie looking like this. Yeah. And then when he finally gets to London or Newcastle, like it opens up, and it's a lot rainier and blue, but it gives him a chance to breathe, I think, and it really sets the tone for like his emotions and how he's a bit more free.
Yeah, I mean that shot of St. James's Park, and then when Glenn Foy is basically telling him, London's got a bunch of teams, Liverpool's got 2, Manchester's got 2, but only one in the Toon. It's like of the documentaries and fan perspectives that I've seen of Newcastle, it's like that is the lifeblood of their city. Like it's Newcastle United. That's everything there. And like, you know, when I was planning my vacation to Europe earlier this year, I said I was actually trying to make it out because Newcastle was playing at home. Just was unfortunate that it didn't work out that way. And, you know, obviously I didn't get to go, but that's definitely on my bucket list is to see St. James's Park.
It's a really nice stadium. I've been a couple of times. My brother supports Newcastle, actually. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's over 100 years old, right? About 130 years old.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I know they've wanted to renovate it, but or even move it at one point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everyone fought
you
against
can't
that.
move a stadium like that. It's a legendary stadium. Really
Well,
is.
they do
Great
with
noise.
they've done it to West Ham, right? And it killed the
Oh,
spirit of the
it
club.
killed it.
yeah, we talked about that, didn't we, when we did a final score? Yeah, it just
Yeah.
killed that
Just
whole.
absolute worst atmosphere I've ever been
Yeah.
to, and that includes North American sports. It was horrible. No, I'm not. There's no joke. I did not feel like I was at a football match at all. You know,
Oh, you're saying that's the worst, including North American sports?
it is the worst, including North American sports. I'm sorry, I did not like the Queen Elizabeth Stadium whatsoever. I felt like I wasted
Wow.
my money on a ticket. And that was a cracking game, by the way. It was West Ham versus Huddersfield, where Huddersfield was leading 3-1 and West Ham came back for 4-3. And I'm like, the atmosphere is still so dead. Yeah. But anyways, that's enough of a tangent on West Ham.
Yeah. But yeah, so Glenn does do a really good job of explaining about how they're kind of the only club, and yeah, it is the lifeblood. Like Newcastle's a weird place. Like it's closer to like Edinburgh than it is to London, kind
Yeah,
of. And
exactly.
Yeah.
so isolated up there, and it's the only like huge city up there as well. Like you've got Sunderland and Middlesbrough, but they're kind of not in the same
Yeah.
league as in like the size and population density and stuff. So yeah.
No, it was really nice. It was a great advert for Newcastle, as I was saying before, and it's definitely probably something that a lot of people watching this movie and are like, hey, I would like to go to that place. So it's great from a tourism perspective, and just the entire on location for the trilogy actually in general was very well thought out. I guess that's what happens when you have the Adidas money behind you. But
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah,
funny
and-
too, right? Because Adidas kind of dictated what clubs they could use. I think at one point they were looking at going with Nike. And if that was the case, they would have gone with, I
United
think it
for
was
sure.
Barcelona.
oh no, is it?
I think the names were like, well, it would have been Man United, Barcelona, and then whatever national team, right? Oh, it says still had, it would have been to, or maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't have been Mexico, eh? Maybe Portugal. Anyways.
Was Mexico Adidas at this time? Because they never. Well, I guess that's in the third one.
I think it was, right?
Yeah.
It's been for a while. But yeah, so it was just like a nature of the contract that they ended up with Newcastle. And then to, like you guys were saying, to showcase it this well it's really cool.
And it's cool as well because I guess maybe, I don't know, I don't remember how this happened, but it was like a known thing that was kind of planned out at the time. So
It's a trilogy?
it was known that it was planned out as a trilogy that ultimately would end. And that's where, because like it was endorsed by FIFA. So it was ultimately, they said it would end with him making it to the World Cup. But then also at the time going to the cinema, I remember somehow knowing that the second film was going to be about him moving to Europe, and even people saying Real Madrid. So then when later on in the film, it has Beckham, Zidane, and whoever the other player is, I forget.
Raul.
Should we say
Raul.
Yeah, it was Raul.
Raul?
Yeah.
Yeah, Raul at
So
City Bar.
it's kind of like almost like a Easter egg, like, oh, that's hinting they're going to be his teammates eventually. That's kind of cool.
Should
So
we
there's definitely some
abstain from
planning.
any future spoilers just in case somebody's watching this
Yeah.
as we go along? So we won't go past this movie. We'll just say that.
I mean, yeah, we'll just stay in goal.
Yeah.
This goal,
Yeah.
which is, I guess they renamed it to Goal: The Dream Begins because of the trilogy.
But like Star Wars: A New Hope.
Yeah, because
know,
the second one
episode
is called
4,
Living
yeah.
the Dream, and that's all I'll say about the second one. But the second one's called Living the Dream. This one's called Goal: The Dream Begins, which his dream begins at Newcastle. That's where we're at right now. First of all, who can just show up at a manager's doorstep like that? I'd be getting all my friends trials at football clubs if that was the case.
Especially a scout that he apparently fired when he took over. And this is the thing as well. They portray this manager as kind of like a Sven or like an Arsene Wenger kind of manager. So I get this sense that he was fired because they moved on, and it's like the early signs of how we started to go towards like data-driven football and analysis and stuff, not just a scout that happened to see him whilst he was being a bad soccer dad at a game in the US and then just recommended him because he's got a feeling. Like, we've definitely moved away from that. I feel like this was the start of that revolution. Like, Arsenal were pretty good at signing like French unknown players based on statistics and stuff. And it's just weird that in this instance, the French guy would be like, yeah, okay, we'll give it a go. Like,
There's another little plot inconsistency, and this is just me being very, very nitpicky. But basically, when Glenn Foy phones the manager, Mr. Dornhelm, I think his name is, and he says, you know, I used to be a scout at Newcastle. You fired me when you got rid of the old regime. Well, that first team coach that we meet has apparently known Glenn Foy for a very long time, and they worked together. And so, did he really just get rid of the old regime, or just Glenn Foy because he was a shit scout apparently?
I want everyone out. You.
Sometimes clubs do that though, don't they? To maintain that like fan relationship kind of. They'll keep a local boy in there. Like John Carver was the Newcastle assistant manager for years under so many managers.
Yeah, isn't that what you did with your football manager squad? I remember you saying a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I'll find an old player that's about to retire and look at his coaching stats. And I'll be like, yeah, you can come on board as a coach. Yeah. And see, I'm guilty. Clean the house and just go all my favourites back.
That's interesting. At this point, or is it this point? When does he go to the hospital for his medical? It is at this point, right?
Just before that, he has his first trial, right? Where he's like caked in mud.
Yeah, and that was brilliant, by the way. I love that.
So
I love that rain and the freaking shit muddy pitch and he's just getting the crap kicked out of him.
Yeah, he takes a free kick and slides over. Yeah, it's horrendous. And then the hospital's just after that because then Glenn goes and pleads with Eric again and says, look, you were on your phone the whole time. The weather was crap. You went in early. Please. And that's when he says, okay, he's got a month. And then he goes to see Ros to have his medical.
So just going back to that scene where he's getting kicked in the mud, there was at least 2 fouls that I saw in there that are red card worthy.
Oh, yeah.
At least 2.
That one guy that decides he's had it in with, calls him a muppet. Like he's like horrendous.
Yeah.
All through it. So. Yeah. Like later on when they're in the reserve games, he's terrible in them too, just fouling players for fun.
Yeah, there was an elbow in the Fulham match, I think, at one point, and it was a yellow.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's told like one more.
We know the biases that come with English football, but come on now. That's a little bit much, right?
Even then, even accounting for then, it was too rough, Yeah.
That looked like 70s Leeds football.
For
As we saw in our first episode.
And so, like you were mentioning, Adam, at this point, you know, he fails at his first run out, and then Glenn Foy goes into this eloquent banquet that they're having where the manager's sitting and pleads his case again. And again, the guy gets a 1-month trial now. And at this point, he has to go to the hospital to get his medical done. And this is where he meets his love interest, the Ros Hermison, I think her name is in the movie. I mentioned it. Ros Harmison, played by Anna Friel.
I tell you, this is one thing. Anna Friel has got to be the best person ever at accents. Because her Geordie accent's so convincing. She's actually from Manchester.
Oh, wow, yeah. Greater
and Manchester. Then she was famous, I guess, in probably the 90s. She was in a show called Brookside, which was a pretty famous soap opera that doesn't exist anymore. In that, she played a Scouser. Accent completely convincing. Ooh. She was also in Pushing Up Daisies, which was a short-lived US TV show. Had an amazing American accent in that. She's such a good actress. Like she's so convincing in this, and like subtlety to her performance. Like she seems in this scene, like seems genuinely like interested in Santiago. Like she's never seen a Mexican guy before, and just so like warm towards him and stuff. And it's like convincing in a way, like above and beyond what a nurse would be. Kind of. It's just like. So good.
They added this one aspect to his character that was kind of unnecessary. When she sees his tattoo and she's like, what's this about?
Oh,
I used to be in a gang. You either get shot, I can't remember what the second option was, but the third option was your grandmother goes in there and beats everybody up. And I was like,
sure, buddy.
There was no sense of him ever being kind of like a hard-nosed type of guy, even like before or after that scene. So it's such a weird element to kind of put in.
Because he doesn't seem like a tough kid right at the beginning when they're crossing the border. He seems like a bit of a wimp kind of. And then we jump to 10 years and he's a nice guy. like doing his, like we said, trying to work and hustle and stuff. It's So I just wonder if maybe that was meant to be a plot point they left dangling that'd get picked up in another film or something, like come back to haunt him. And I don't know. It is weird.
You figure his dad would say something like, I pulled you out of that gang life and brought you into my business. Don't leave for a soccer career now or something. But it's just so weird. Just pops up out of nowhere and then goes away for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he tries that cheesy pickup line on her when she's taking his blood pressure, and he's like, "Oh, it might be a little bit high." She's like, "Why?" She's like, "Oh, because you're so close and you look really good and you smell really good."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Shoot your shot, my friend. Shoot your shot."
There's like an innocence to it almost, isn't there? Like it feels genuine. Like he's like the first time he's maybe had he's been hustle until this point. It's the first time he's maybe thought about flirting with somebody, kind of.
He's very authentic, right? You get those two girls that live in that mansion that kind of pull in and out and give them
in the beginning.
me eyes every time they pass by. But they're very phony, and he sees that like authenticness in Roz. So
one of my favorite characters in this movie is actually Jamie, his friend that he makes at Newcastle United, the Scouser, the guy that they signed from Tranmere Rovers.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best characters in this movie, to be honest.
Like such a nice lad, kind of.
It's a nice kid.
Disappears halfway through. He's like, my knee's all messed up. All right, that sucks. And then
but
he was never heard from again.
I'm pretty sure that's the situation for a lot of aspiring footballers where they're just not good enough, but they're still trying to make it up, from the academy to the reserve team, but they're quite never going to make it to the first team, and they're probably going to get let go and either find themselves in the lower divisions or a Glen Hoddle Academy or something, or just not in football at all.
Yeah.
And so he came across as one of those guys that's obviously not as elite as Santiago and the rest of the crew, but still had a very humbling presence about him and becomes Santiago's friend in Newcastle and actually takes him out on the town.
One of the best lines at this point, I don't want to miss it, is he says to someone, do I need an ID to drink?
Yeah.
And they're like, how old do you have to be to drink? And they're like, in Newcastle, 11. And it's just like, it's one of those things that has a lot of northern towns have a reputation for like just letting people drink way younger.
Even now?
Yeah. I think
Really?
I guess they've got stricter, but even the town where I lived in the north of England before I left, there's certain pubs you could go to if you're underage, even to this day, and you would just be able to get in and get served. Or at least if you went in with somebody older, they could get served, and the pub wouldn't care and they wouldn't enforce it. Like there's just off the beaten track pubs, I guess, that police won't necessarily walk in and check randomly. So yeah.
On this very topic, and I don't want to deviate too much, but there's a show called The In-Betweeners.
I thought you were going to mention another show.
And there's this scene where obviously they're four young lads that are still in secondary school and so not old enough to drink. But is it true that if you order a carvery dinner that you can have an accompanying drink with it?
Yes, as long as you're with an adult. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, wow.
And same thing, you're allowed to drink in your own home as long as you're supposed to be with a meal as well. I think it's like 14 or something, you're allowed to legally drink in your own home.
With a meal, though?
Yeah.
So police can enforce you having a drink without a meal, even inside your own home?
I think so. Wow. I could be wrong on that point. There's definitely laws about having a drink in your own home. Because I remember drinking we'd have Sunday roast and I was quite young, and our parents would slowly introduce us to alcohol and be like, hey, you can have half of this, whatever it was.
Nice.
There's another show I thought you were going to mention when you said a TV show. But before that, I just want to say, is there any football in the In-Betweeners 1 or 2?
Yes.
That we can somehow review that on Matchday Matinee?
Oh, the movies? No. There is in the show.
Because there's the Football Friend episode.
Yeah, the one where he keeps lying about being
about trials at West Ham.
Trials at West Ham that never happened.
Okay, we got
to go back to goal. We got to go back to goal.
Someone write that idea down. That can be an off-season In-Betweeners episode. We're doing it.
But the TV show you were going to mention, I thought you were going to say Geordie Shore. So that's why I always wonder if they had a reputation of being that kind of like the Jersey Shore of. Okay, so it's true then, all right.
And the people in Geordie Shore, definitely a good representation of the people you'd bump into in clubs in Newcastle. Especially like the girls and stuff, like all the fake lashes and stuff, and the way Newcastle girls are known for like dressing. It's freezing in Newcastle. It's definitely colder because it's that bit higher up. They'll just go out dressed like it's the summer every day, and it doesn't seem to bother them. I don't know how.
You've just described Roz's mom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cougar groupie. Yeah.
And same with lads. They'll all go out wearing short sleeve shirts, even though it's absolutely freezing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Sounds like a
definitely
lovely
Geordie
town.
Shore is definitely accurate.
Yeah, so they go out on the town at this point as well. So after, they talk about the ID bit, they go out on the town, and this scene is interesting because it's very different to how he starts behaving when he starts hanging around with Gavin Harris later down the movie. He has to wait in line at this point. They're trying to get into a club. They're waiting in line. They're trying to convince the bouncer that they play for Newcastle as well, which nobody believes because nobody's ever seen them. And meanwhile, you see Gavin Harris and posse just getting into the club. And fast forward to later down the movie when Santiago becomes kind of good and starts playing for the reserves and first team. He also gets line bypass automatically. So it's very interesting to see how he starts off in Newcastle as a nobody, but then becomes a somebody and gets the perks of being a somebody. And I guess obviously that's realistic.
Definitely one of the perks.
Yeah, definitely.
Shagging the Armitage sisters.
The Armitage.
When Gavin wakes up, I don't think we're at that point in the movie when he wakes up and he pulls back the covers and he just looks so disappointed in himself. And then he has to do the walk of shame.
Yeah.
And then he passes the kids. And I had to actually turn on the subtitles. Like, what the hell are they saying?
Yeah.
Like, been shagging the Armitage sister. Definitely not the first. There's so many characters like that. When he's first leaving the apartment and there's that old lady and she's like, aren't you Gavin? Gavin Harris. And he's like, yeah, you're shite. And then I think the taxi driver says the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's little kids earlier in the film, isn't there, when Santiago's doing keepy uppies and one of the little lads is like, aye, quite tasty. And it's just like, just these throwaway lines. It's just so funny. Like, and
I just
little
love the
trinkets of how people naturally talk in Newcastle, and they're not afraid to just throw it all in there. Like, everyone's always calling each other Pat. Like, Roz calls Santiago Pat quite a lot. And it's like, yep, people up there say Pat all the time. It's true. And they're not afraid to just throw that in there, even though some viewers might not have a clue what is being said.
It was a very good representation of the people of Newcastle too, right? And especially the first scene when he gets to Newcastle and he goes to that breakfast place and it's like, you better lay off the black pudding. It's like, and he starts to ask what's in there. He's like, you don't want to know, son, right? Like, and it's true. He doesn't want to know.
No, black pudding's gorgeous though. You just have to forget what's in it.
Yeah.
Is it like in Portuguese people, we have blood pudding, which is like a sausage though.
It's the
Same thing.
Yeah. So it's like pork blood, pork fat, and like oats and barley.
And we'll put like rice in it. Yeah.
I'm yet to try black pudding. I've been putting it off for years. But I might try it one day.
It's good.
Is it good?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Kind of want some now.
We'll see one day.
I was going to say, this is, so after they go out on the night out, this is where they have the training session where the coach teaches Santiago about how the ball travels quick by like kicking it and throw it. And then it's just funny. And it just shows, again, it's another example, another way of showing Santiago's like naivety. Because he's like, right, what have we learned? And he's like, you can score from the halfway line. And he's like, no, the ball travels quicker than you.
Make the ball
and
sweat.
he's like, we're a unit, we pass. The name on the front of the shirt is more important than the one on the back. And he's just super, it's not a full Footy Flicks scene, but it's like a rare instance of like actual coaching that makes sense that we don't see often in films that we're reviewing because they don't concentrate on it as much.
Where they try to sensationalize it, like with Pele, where he's doing bicycle kicks with mangoes instead of just actually being taught how to do them, right? Yeah. They try to add this like, I don't know, mythical element to it.
Yeah. And like it's something that goes all the way through the film, right? It's not until much later in the film that Santiago finally starts to look up and start playing passes instead. And it's like, okay, so he did listen and learn. And then after that scene is the first game we get to see, I guess. And it goes to St. James's and like absolute banging song before this Kasabian plays building up to the game. It's so good. And we haven't touched on this. Like the soundtrack to this whole film is amazing. Like there's quite a few Oasis songs, like Who Put the Weight of the World on My Shoulders is earlier on in the film. It's just like such a good soundtrack. And
it kicks off with Gypsy Kings in Mexico.
Yeah.
Which is like it. Portuguese weddings that's like a staple. They play like the entire Gypsy Kings discography for some reason. And then it goes into like Oasis when he does move to US and man, it's awesome. Like when he first debuts, I don't want to get to that scene yet, but yeah, the Oasis set to that is perfect.
Yeah. I forget which song it is, but it's good.
It's
I just wrote in my notes, I just wrote another Oasis song.
I think it's What's the Story, Morning Glory, right?
Might have been. Can't remember. But yeah, anyway.
but where
Oh,
so his
yeah,
reserve debut.
yeah. I'm looking at the list. Yeah, Morning Glory. Yeah, you're right.
He gets his actually no, he goes to watch the match first.
Yeah.
He doesn't make his reserve debut yet, right?
No, it's just it's not long after this.
But you can see he's slowly improving though with every training session. That's what you get. That with proper coaching and stuff like that, you can kind of see that he's slowly improving and he's on the cusp.
Yeah.
He's on the cusp. But anyways, go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say I think we get our first Canadian Premier League.
Yes, we do.
Reference.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, David Edgar. Forge FC defender.
Yeah.
He's on the reserve squad with Santiago Munez.
Yeah. And his finger covers half the name, but you see most of it. And it's just enough to get excited.
Yeah.
So he makes the reserve squad after that game.
Yes.
And he tries to call his dad to tell him, and his dad won't speak to him and says that he doesn't care because he feels he left like a thief. A thief.
Did you guys get the sense that his brother struggled to say his own name?
No, he says it in a very like Hispanic type of way though. He says Santiago, right? Like,
no, he doesn't roll it. He's like if he rolled it would be okay, but he stunts it. He's like Santiago's on the phone. It's like,
maybe
this kid's Mexican.
Watch it. Is he? The grandmother is actually Puerto Rican. She's a really popular actress. You know where else she's from? By the way, Scarface. She's Tony Montana's mom.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
She hasn't aged.
I mean, she stayed the same age since 1983.
She went from mom to grandmom.
Exactly. I mean, Tony Montana looked like he was in his 40s too at that time, though.
True.
But yeah, and she's been in a bunch of other movies, and she's been honored.
Miriam Colon.
Yeah. She's Puerto Rican, though. And yeah, she's...
The dad is from Ugly Betty, I think, right?
Is he?
That might be what I've seen him before then.
Crazy.
All right.
So at this point, he makes his debut for the reserve team, and this is the point where that dick just basically breaks his. So caveat. So Santiago has an inhaler which he did not tell Rose about or the club about while he was doing his medical. So he kept that hidden because he was of the mind that if they knew I had respiratory problems, that they would not give me a trial. And this guy, what's his name? Mick something. Whatever.
The guy who tells him not to shag his sister.
Yeah, that guy. Sees him using an inhaler at some point, and then just before the reserve game, breaks it just to be an even bigger idiot, right? And obviously his first reserve game, Santiago's first reserve game, in front of the manager, in front of Mr. Dornhelm, struggling, and he's basically taken off after like what seemed like 15, 20 minutes. Because he's struggling to run, he's having breathing problems, and at this point it's decided that, by the first team coach, that maybe he doesn't have the pace for the English game. You can see that he has a skill, but maybe he doesn't have the pace for the English game, which, by the way, is very common. I think that's a common thing amongst players that come from abroad, where they have all the, the razzle dazzle, they'll have the the technical ability, and this is maybe more back in the day as opposed to now, because even now the Premier League's becoming a lot more technical, but where they have the technical ability, they have the skill, great ball control, but they can't keep up with the pace, they can't keep up with the physicality.
Yeah, I think that's like English football's like definitely this era played at such a pace, but not in a way like it's not like a press like how Liverpool play now or how Man City press from the front. It's not that. It's just all in the pitch, like frenetic, and people trying to even remember when Pep took over Man City and he kind of said, it took him a while to adjust to the importance of the second ball, like how quickly everyone just swarms to get the ball when you lose possession.
Yeah.
It's like frenetic in a way that a lot of like European leagues certainly aren't. So yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So he struggles. He's basically fired again, or fired. That's what he says, but he's cut. He's let go. And then he's basically saying his goodbyes to everybody, calls his grandma that he's coming back home. But then who comes and saves the day?
Good old Gavin.
By the way, is Gavin Harris based off of any character? He kind of gives me that Beckham vibe a little bit.
No, Beckham never had these issues, did he?
No.
Like he was never really a playboy.
Is that Robbie Savage maybe? No?
No. It's weird, right, isn't it? It's like a pretty boy Gaza almost.
I guess.
But then I don't know, because Gaza was always drinking. I think Gaza was too drunk to be sleeping around.
Yeah, so this guy's just party boy, goes out every
he's
night.
like a pretty boy kind of. He's got like earrings. I think he's meant to be sort of what Beckham would be like, if not on the straight and narrow kind of.
Yeah.
It's like a Balotelli.
No.
Max Balotelli's just like a man-child doing magic at football games and stuff.
He has the exact accent of David Beckham, I find, almost.
Yeah.
The high-pitched.
Yeah, I think he's meant to be.
So this is the Armitage sisters scene.
Yeah.
When he goes out and he sees his car's been jacked, all the tires have been taken off.
Yeah, and that's how Gavin kind of saves him, right? Because they end up sharing a taxi.
Because the cab. So the cab is taking Santiago to the train station, but has to reroute because Gavin's on the first team and he takes top priorities. So he's like, you have to. This is priority number one. You have to pick up this fare and reroute and take Santiago to the train station second. But then they obviously both run into each other, and somebody else saves the day for Santiago again. So this is the third time somebody just merely asks the coach whether this guy can be on the team, and the third time the coach agrees again. And then he gets him another chance, and then basically he does well in training, gets to train with the first team, and it pretty much just goes on from there.
There's a scene when they're on the training pitch and Santiago's practicing penalties.
Yes.
And now that you said this about Diamantino, I always
Ronaldo.
like it. It picks up right away. Yeah, he's taking some of the worst penalties I've seen. Like he's just like like toe punting the ball almost.
Dude, some of his goals or shots in this movie are pure toe punts that are like the ball's kind of like so slow going into the net. I'm like, I could have saved that, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just for effect. I don't know. But I guess his first team debut is for Fulham, for Newcastle against Fulham at Craven Cottage.
Yeah, you see a lot of American guys. That was like the Full America days, I think they used to call it.
Yeah, Fulham
Bocanegra was there. Dempsey.
What was his name?
Keeper Keller.
No. The main O'Brien. No,
McBride.
That's it.
McBride.
Brian McBride. Yeah,
that's it. So they win that game. Yeah, of course, because they have to win. They have to get maximum points. Yeah, so that's another backstory. Newcastle has to get maximum points to make it to fourth position to make it into Europe throughout this entire film, because the Championship or the Premier League is out of question. Their main goal for the season is to make it to Europe, and they've got to finish above Liverpool to do it. But in order to do that, they have to beat every single team in the league with 3 games left, including Liverpool. First of all, I want to say, how did that Gavin Harris transfer even take place in the middle of the season? They only have 3 games left to go. I don't know. And then somehow they signed Santiago and got him his first team debut as well.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. We won't get into
another suspension of belief kind of thing.
None of the timeline really makes sense because they only have a few games left. They have to get maximum points, but they're still playing in the winter at one point.
Yeah,
and he manages to play like 4 or 5 reserve games in this time period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite add up, I guess, but whatevs.
But this is where the Footy Flicks really take off, right? It's from the Fulham game onwards when he's actually playing in the Premiership.
Yeah.
And I believe the only 2 games that they show are Fulham and then Liverpool in the end, right? They don't show any other Premier League games, correct?
No, they're the only 2.
Right, because the third last one, he's actually watching in the stands.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Against Chelsea.
Yeah. But either way, they still do a good job of showing. We'll get onto it later, but the matches look good.
Yes, absolutely.
Did we already get to the club scene when he goes with Gavin and they see they bump into Beck? Looks so weird in this movie.
He does,
because after this game, isn't it? Yeah.
I've always thought that, even as a kid. I'm like, why does Beckham look so weird? Because Beckham has a cameo at the club. I'm like, why does Beckham look so weird? And I think I narrowed it down. It's because he went overboard on tweezing his eyebrows.
Yes, he had the super thin eyebrows.
Yes, that's exactly why. And I'm like, what the hell's going on?
This is where he was like full Beckham, like blonde tips and everything.
Yeah.
And
the Galacticos era.
Yeah.
So
and then it's just it's just so stilted and weird. And Beckham stands out more than Zidane and Raul, I guess, because he's speaking in English. He's just like, congratulations, you played very well. And it's like, okay, thanks.
It's a cutscene from The Journey.
The journey, like, it's on a par with that. It truly is.
Yeah.
We missed a bit just before this as well, actually. Sorry. When his dad goes to the pub in the supporters club in LA. That's like basically in parallel to that game. It's a cool bit because he manages to find an LA pub, which is where the Newcastle supporters club are, I guess. And,
but they have flags in the back. Well, they have a Liverpool "You'll Never Walk Alone" flag in the background, and then I think a Fulham flag as well. So it's not a dedicated Newcastle
It's a Premier League sports pub like we have here.
football factory type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's one near me where Man City fans apparently go, but then there's other supporters still go there as well. So, yeah.
With the time difference, even if this was a late game on Saturday, which is 12:30 at like Eastern time, which is 5:30
GMT, yeah.
Yeah, GMT. That means it was 9:30 a.m. in Los Angeles. So this guy's at best watching that game at 9:30 a.m.
Which is what makes the joke funny when what makes the joke funny when the guy offers him a pint and he's like it's a little bit early and he's like it's never too early in Newcastle.
Yeah,
that's the guy from AC/DC.
Is it?
Yeah, I can't remember what his name is.
Really?
What? Look it up. Yes,
Brian Johnson. Yeah,
Brian Johnson.
Yeah. He is listed in the cameos for the film.
That's cool.
I think just because he was a Toon supporter, right?
Oh.
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah,
he requested it. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
How weird.
Yeah, and that seems actually realistic because when I went to California, there was no concept of opening time. They mostly close all the pubs around 2 a.m., but there's no concept of how early you can start serving. At least not in the hotels.
Anyway, sorry, I digressed a bit. So we're back at that club scene,
disputing liquor laws for some reason. Yeah, they bump into Real Madrid. You see Zidane's there, Raul, Bex is there as well.
Yeah,
and then upstairs you run into, and this is such a scummy thing, man. So Gavin was such like a kind of like okay guy at this point, but you find out he has a girlfriend.
Yes.
All right. So he's actually been cheating on
Santiago about how crappy being with Gavin kind of is.
Yeah, and I thought she was hitting on Santiago, and then he mentions like, how did you guys first meet? And that's when you realize that she is his girlfriend, and she's just seen him upstairs with Santiago on a bed with like 4 or 5 women.
Yeah.
And then there's also in this scene, it doesn't establish who some of these people are, but I guess they're kind of hangers on.
Yep.
A little bit. It's like there's
they're Gavin's entourage.
Yeah. There's like Lee Ross is an actor who plays Bluto, who people might recognize. He's in White Gold. He plays the gangster guy. He plays Ronnie Farrell in White Gold, who threatens the main characters, like buys out the double glazing firm. Oh, he's kind of in there in the background. Yeah. But yeah, he's just like one of these hanger-on. He's the one taking the pictures that ultimately expose Santiago.
And he's like the Rebecca Vardy of the crew.
Yeah.
He takes the photos and sells them to the tabloids.
Yeah, it's just like filth.
There are people like that, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Just hangers-on that try to make a quick buck. They're the people that sell their stories to newspapers and things like that, just to make a quick buck and just to say I was there. I find it happens in the UK quite a bit, actually, more than it happens in North America.
Happened to Wayne Rooney once, famously, in a casino washroom. Like, that was a friend that sold that story, allegedly. Like, yeah, it happens. So we love to knock people down.
Yeah.
Can't help it. Press just cannot help it.
Well, that was a controversy I was just joking about, like Rebecca Vardy and Rooney's wife, right?
Yes.
Where she went through that whole Instagram investigation.
Oh, yeah, and was posting like fake stories, right? And then managed to narrow down who it was.
Yeah. She narrowed it down to one. So she blocked everyone except for one follower who was Rebecca Vardy. And it turned out that she was the one leaking stories to the Daily Mail.
Yeah, something like that. Who will like post anything because they're a garbage newspaper.
Yeah, insane. But yeah, so that scene takes place, and like controversies that we've seen, Santiago turns up in the newspaper as having a party and, getting carried away, even though he really didn't. It was just a photo op. It was just a photo that somebody took advantage of. And it says Santiago Munez and another Newcastle player were involved, and the coach or the manager, of course, wants to know who was that other player. And Santiago does not give up Gavin Harris at this point, but then goes home and gives Gavin Harris a little bit of shit for being like, hey, you got to get your life together. We've got 10 years as pros. Let's make the best out of it. We're just one injury away from flipping burgers. This is actually exactly what he says. So why not, try to do the best that we can on and off the pitch. To which Gavin Harris reacts really badly and kicks him out of the house. And long behold, Santiago's back at Glenfoy's. So full circle. It was crazy times. But do they ever show in the movie how they make up?
No,
Gavin
they
Harris.
don't.
And it was just very quickly glossed over, right?
It's kind of the same thing, right? Like with the same with Roz, right? Like she's really hurt and upset. And then he goes to see Jamie, who we talked about before, who's like bust his leg, and she kind of just warms up to him being sad about his friend.
True.
And then like the next pivotal scene after this is when Glenn comes to tell Santiago that his dad has passed away. And then, sort of just around that time, Gavin's just like, hey, let's play football together and be cool. It's just really weird.
No, Dornhelm meets up with Gavin and he kind of talks to him and says, like, get your shit together. You're 29. You should be somebody that these players are looking up to. Yeah. And that kind of resolves his character arc. And then that's when he, I think the next time we see him, he's picking up Santiago from Glenfoy's garage.
Yes, in a flash car. Yeah. Santiago goes back to paying back the money he gave him for the breakfast earlier in the movie, right? And then, Gavin's there in his Mercedes picking him up. Yeah.
So, interesting fact about this movie: a lot of product placement for Mercedes as well, which I'm guessing Mercedes is one of the main sponsors. So you first see your Mercedes when those two girls are driving into their mansion when he's doing the gardening and stuff like that. It's the first time you see Mercedes. You constantly see Gavin driving Mercedes. And I actually researched this a little bit. So this movie is very good at product placement for different things. Adidas, obviously. Mercedes being the other big one.
Let us guess one more.
Guess.
FIFA.
Well, yes. It was partly funded by FIFA.
No, the video game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Yeah. I mean, I noticed that they were playing FIFA, but...
I paused it to see which player Gavin was playing as because he looked kind of like Santiago. And I was like, did they go the extra mile like Adam suggested they should do in Diamantino?
Oh, Diamantino, yeah.
But it was Laurent Robert.
Oh, no way, damn it. Of all the players.
They were pushing him, Ed.
So here's just a brief synopsis of Mercedes, the scenes that Mercedes is in. So their cars were present in several scenes. The California girls, as I mentioned, that are driving into their mansion. Gavin drove Mercedes convertibles. Santiago's agent Glenn drove an M Series in LA and one of the Mercedes estate models in Newcastle. The boys also come to the nightclub in a Mercedes SUV. So basically every car you see in the movie is a Mercedes.
The boys, the reserve team boys, or the?
No, when Gavin
first team boys.
Yeah, the first team boys.
They should have had like the reserve team boys show up in like an 88 Mercedes.
And,
like old Mercedes with their dads or something.
Again, I don't want to spoil the second movie, and I won't, but it changes from Mercedes to other car manufacturers for Gold 2. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to leave you.
Remember. Okay.
So that was interesting, but Gavin picks up Santiago, they're friends again, and then they have to beat Liverpool in the decider in the final. As with all sports movies, there's always that match that, is the culminating match. And this time it happens to be against Liverpool, who, by the way, at this point, were European champions in real life. They had won in Istanbul, as everybody knows, the ultimate Champions League final. But you see a lot of cameos from both Newcastle and Liverpool players. So you see Steven Gerrard, Milan Berosh, Igor Bishkan, John Anarisa are three of the notable ones that I saw.
I feel like this is the biggest test of we'll get into it and talk about Footy Flicks, but the way they chose to do these games is like the biggest test of it, because so much of this, they show a lot more of this game than they showed of any of the others. And they do a really good job, like the dressing room scene at the beginning where the manager's giving his talk. All of the fake players are sat on one side of the dressing room and all the real players are sat on the other. And then the manager's like looking down at them all sat on the like benches. And it does a really good job of cutting between the two and making you think they're in the same room when they definitely weren't. That's not how they did it, apparently.
Question, do you think that's the real dressing room for Newcastle? That's very underwhelming.
No, I don't. I know what you mean, because it's literally two rows of benches very close together. Yeah.
The lighting's good. The lighting looks awesome, but...
I don't know. We're spoiled now, though. When you look at modern dressing rooms, right? They are so like everyone has their own like stand essentially where all their gear is. I don't know. Maybe
the very first episode when we see Leeds dressing room and they're sipping teas on cement benches.
Yeah, you see, years ago I went on there was a student I worked with who really wanted to do the Anfield tour, so we went on it. And their dressing room, this is a long time ago now, their dressing room wasn't too dissimilar to that, just a lot bigger. But it was like benches and stuff like that still, with pegs, and then they put the shirts up on the pegs. So maybe we're just thinking...
The stadium is like 120 years old, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder how much room they have to renovate. Are they knocking out another room to expand the area?
Exactly.
But Anfields of a similar age, and the dressing rooms are phenomenal now, right?
Were they always that size, or did they have to get rid of
they were
administration
smaller.
offices?
I'm not sure what they got rid of, but I mean, they're definitely nice. Like, they're very nice. I mean, I think the Spurs dressing room is gold standard now with their new stadium. Premier League dressing rooms, I don't think anything's like that, but Liverpool's is still pretty good, where each player basically has their own half-closed cubicle almost.
Yeah. Man City's is quite similar. You see it in that all or nothing. Kind of everyone has like this little wooden area that's their own with like shelves and stuff with all their equipment on, and their names are all printed in advance above the thing and stuff.
I just remember we get a match against QPR at some point too, right? One of the reserve matches.
That was a reserve match. I don't know if it was against QPR, but that was definitely Loftus Road. It was against Middlesbrough. They showed a match against Middlesbrough.
There is a reserve game against QPR because they were in my little Footy Flicks. That's when that's this one with his sister, because he says, if you shag her, I'll kill you.
Oh, yeah.
She thinks you look like Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
Closeted, not closeted, I mean, we can call it racism, but, you know, it was interesting that they chose that.
So, yeah. And then the last game as well, also important, the Gran goes to the sports bar, which is really nice.
I thought that was very awkward.
But it was cool. Like, she did a good job of looking awkward, right?
I was going to mention that.
She walks in, like, holding her handbag and stuff and looking a bit confused as to what's going on.
An 85-year-old grandma and a 10-year-old kid going to an Irish pub together full of Newcastle punters. I don't know, man. Glenn Foy's daughter's there too, so maybe they kind of decided.
Did they introduce her before?
They did, very briefly. She's like...
The daughter, yeah.
Earlier in the movie?
Yeah, it's her,
okay.
I guess it's her kid that Glenn Foy is watching. And then Glenn Foy's like being a terrible soccer dad, like yelling at them. And the daughter tells him to calm down. And that's when he spins around and watches Santiago's game instead of the shitty kids game that he can't be bothered to watch.
Because when she shows up, I'm like, did they hire a nanny because the father passed away or something? Like, I completely forgot about her character.
One kid.
Yeah. And then the grandmother says, Glenn's daughter brought us.
Yeah, so she was in it for like 3 minutes, either like bookending the movie kind of. Yeah.
Pretty girl, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I thought it was a cute scene too. There's a lot of scenes in this movie that other footy films try to hit, like the sentimental scenes where a player is really soaking it in, or you get those bonds between family members. And I feel like this movie really hit on a lot of those. Like they did a really good job of, like, even when Santi comes back and he tells the coach. So I think we missed that scene. So his father passes away, and then he gets the call from his grandmother to say, "Come home, the family needs you." And he's sitting in the airport, and it's his time to board. And he finally looks at the boarding pass and he says, "No, I'm not going." Comes back to the coach and he tells him, "I was always looking for an excuse. I was always looking for a reason to kind of say things didn't work out." And that was kind of what his father had instilled in him, to say, you can't live your dreams. So he finally breaks that cycle and says, like, no, I can't live my dreams. This is my chance. I don't need an excuse. So he defies his father's kind of teachings to honor his spirit, I guess, or to fulfill his own dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. Focus a little bit on the Liverpool match. So, Adam, I know you briefly touched on this, on how it was shot. So I find, so it seemed like part of it was a real game on a green screen with Santiago kind of in front of that green screen and some fake players.
There's one very noticeable part with that,
There's a couple of, for some reason, some of Gavin's scenes look way more noticeable that they're on the green screen.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, and I only know this because there's a magazine show called Football Focus that's on back home that kind of airs just before the 3 p.m. kickoffs. And what they actually did is they went at half time, the players would run out to film a lot of these scenes, and they put messages over the tannoys to say, "Hey, can you please stay in the stand? We need to get some crowd footage of these players. So it's weird. They must have mixed the two. There's some bits where it's actually them running around pretending to play football at Newcastle's ground. And then, there's other bits. And that's why I think they stand out a bit more, because there's bits where it's green screen that they did afterwards. And the other weird thing is, and I don't know if either of you noticed this, they also use lookalikes for some of the players.
Yes, I saw that. For
Milan Baros is the one that stood out because the guy doesn't really look like him. He's taller than him. He just happens to also have long hair. There's a few, and there's a couple of other Liverpool players where it's stand out that you can tell it's not them, because you said, they're European champions. There's quite a few well-known players in that team at that time, and they stand out like it's not actually them.
Do you know who stands in for us? Do you know who stands in for Santiago at one point?
No, go on. I can't remember.
Lauren Robert.
Of course. There's a theme here.
Lauren Robert stands in for Santiago. He's the one who actually takes the free kick at the end.
Free kick. Okay, so he's the secret hero of this movie then.
He just comes in, makes a huge splash, and then
gone.
Comes into your life, leaves you with memories, and whispers on to the next
lack
moment.
of memories. I
think the game's good though, and it's typical. It's the same problem. We've been here before with games. Falls to a free kick from a very tight angle as well, like a weird. It's not like center on. It's kind of to the right of the penalty box.
Yeah. It's one of those situations where I think Gavin Harris scores the first goal, but then Liverpool go on and score two.
Yeah, with the Barros lookalike scoring the second goal, so 2-1.
Gerrard gets a header at first.
Yeah. And then to tie it up, Santiago is basically doing the same move he did back when the manager, Mr. Dormhelm, was giving him that message that you should pass the ball because the ball's faster than you. He's making the same sort of run, but this time he actually passes the ball in a real game situation to Gavin Harris, who scores his second goal. So now Gavin Harris has come good. And then they're tied at 2-2, and the aforementioned free kick happens with seconds left to go in the game. And of course, we all know how this ends. Santiago scores the free kick. And they all go off and celebrate because they've made it to Europe.
Yeah. And then Granny calls him, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does, from the pub.
Says, we're at the pub and we found out your dad's here. And this is one of the worst scenes. And Raghav, you wrote this in our group chat earlier today. When Santiago goes to yell to Glenn. And he's like, Glenn, my dad saw me. He saw me. He saw me in the Fulham game.
The Fulham game. The Fulham. Not Fulham, not the Fulham game. The Fulham game.
The Fulham game. And it's like, he saw me play. And it's like, oh, God. And then, he lets out a scream. And then another banger of a song Oasis plays. And it's just brilliant.
It was awesome. It was a good movie. It was worth the watch for sure. And I urge anybody that's thinking of watching or has never watched it, or even if you've watched it, to watch it again. It's great. It's a good movie. It's a feel good movie.
Yeah. And I was worried I wasn't going to enjoy it as much, and I'm glad it just didn't disappoint.
By the way, I think the only things, so there's a couple of things that bothered me, and one of those things were anytime there was an emotional scene, so whether Santiago was angry, happy, surprised, the camera would always do this pan into his face, which I was like, every single time this guy feels emotion, they pan in, they do close zoom up of his face and then keep going. And I'm like, this feels so disingenuous at times, right? But it's just a small thing.
Only time I really hated it was the very last shot of the movie when it did that, but then it went into slow motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah.
Could have lived without that.
Anyways, we've dissected this movie to death. Do we want to get into Footy Flicks?
Sure.
Let's do it. Favorite scene, Adam?
I actually think the best scene is probably that QPR game earlier on. The reason I like it is because they don't have to do any of the green screen trickery, right? Because it's meant to be a reserve game, so they kind of feels like it's a more controlled method of it and showing, and it's kind of how. Yeah, it's probably the best and most accurate football scene. Like that's what a reserve game's like bare crowd and players that probably are not good enough, kind of mucking about. So yeah, that's probably my favourite one. And a close second is I think the last game. It's impressive how they managed to do that and how they pull it off. And it's like the most high budget probably. Like no other one we've done has used real games in quite that same way. So it's impressive. So yeah.
Yeah. The build up to it was done so well too. Like I was saying, this is such a tight movie. There isn't really much wasted time in it.
Yeah.
And they build up that scene like it's almost a perfect climax. And I really like that they didn't go with like him winning the league or winning the Champions League even. It was just them qualifying for
That was good.
for the Champions League.
That was
game.
good. That was good. I really
So it's like kind of reasonable expectations.
Any other scenes that's a standout in particular for you guys?
You know what I really liked in terms of like Footy Flicks was that there was a clear progression. Like the first Footy Flicks scene we get is the kids on the street with the Gypsy Kings. Then he's playing in the community park where he gets noticed by Glenn Foy. Then he moves up to the Uni Stadium with all the MLS logos for some reason. And I had to look it up because I was wondering if that was the old LA Galaxy Stadium, but they already had Home Depot Center at that point.
Yeah,
so I think it was just a training ground. Was that a product placement? All the MLS logos?
Could be.
Interesting. And then he goes to the training pitch, from the training pitch to the reserve match, and then from the reserve match to his Premier League debut. It's just so cool how they built that up.
Progression was good, yeah. And you could see him actually getting better, which is weird for a film.
Yeah.
Like you see him progressing and getting better, which was excellent. And for me, I think my favorite Footy Flicks was definitely the first time he gets a run out with Newcastle on that muddy pitch, just getting battered.
That's a good scene.
Just getting absolutely battered. And I'm like, this is what English football is all about. The rain, the mud, getting battered, not being able to get up, being sore in the morning. Brilliant.
It's a way more brutal version of the scenes we saw throughout the Palais movie of Palais getting roughed up. This is like the ultimate version of that, roughed up in really, really crappy weather, like muddy. It just looks so much more authentic that you could imagine this is what it's actually like being in the reserves.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So out of 5 stars, what are we giving this movie?
I can go first if you guys like, and then
sure.
I'm always the one that overscores it, so I'll set the bar really high, and then you guys can limbo underneath. I'm gonna give this a 4.
Woo.
I really enjoyed it.
Jeez.
Yeah, man. I guess this is my type of movie now. Looking back at Victory in this is kind of like the underdog build up. I really enjoyed it. Like everything was so tight knit. There was a good amount of comedy. The jokes hit for me. I liked the rag to riches story. I liked the Footy Flick scenes. Music was amazing in it. Like we had Oasis throughout, Gypsy Kings at the beginning, and it was just all of it was just on point. I loved it.
All right. A 4 out of 5. How about yourself, Adam?
I think I'm gonna say a 4 stars as well. I really enjoyed this film again, third or fourth time round, whatever this is. It's a really good film, and I'm kind of the same. I'm beginning to realize as we go through this, I like a football film that's doing that extra bit to be a bit more authentic. So whether it's like in Escape to Victory, having real footballers do the actual scenes, or in this one, kind of trying to merge real football with the actors. It lends gives an authenticity that some of these other, like the magical Palais movie, didn't have.
Yeah.
4. How about you?
Yep.
3.5 out of 5. I think that's a fair score. I think it hits well for the reasons that you guys said. I think there's some plot holes. I think there's some comedic scenes and cinematography that I didn't quite like so much. But yeah, I'm going with 3.5. I think it's solid for sure.
Where does that rank on your scale? I'm trying to remember. Like, what would you rank at 3.5? Where did Bend It Like Beckham come in for you?
4 or 4.5.
Ooh. What did you give Diamantino?
A 3 or 3.5.
A little lower. Yeah, okay.
I think our table ranking is going to be interesting today.
It will be.
Yep.
All right. Should we get to trivia?
Yeah, we should get to trivia. Let's discuss, but 3.5 out of 5. Let's get to trivia, and then we'll discuss the table, which is the final standings for this season, guys. Somebody's getting relegated, and somebody's becoming champion. I think we all know.
Who's getting relegated?
Well, number 12 is already relegated. It has been since we talked about it, which is United Passions. But it was relegated. It actually had negative points to start the season, so.
Oh yeah. Well, how are we going to do this? So we'll have a full table at the end of this.
Yeah.
And then maybe we wait until the end of season 2. We look at the top 3 of season 2. We mix them into the table from season 1 and drop the bottom 3 of season 1. Does that make sense?
Something like that.
Could do pretty well. Yeah.
Sounds good.
But then number 9 on our table from season 1 might be better than number, say, 4 or 5 from season 2.
We can figure it out off air. We could also have.
Sorry, say that again.
We could have a season 2.
Number 9
we have 1 to 12.
Yeah.
So we have number 1 to 12 on season 1.
Yeah.
And then season 2, we'd also have 1 to 12.
Yeah.
But we're saying season 2, we'll take the top 3 movies.
Yeah.
Mix them into season 1. And the bottom 3 movies from season 1 fall off.
Absolutely. Yep.
But then what happens if season 2's number 4 is better than season 1's number 7? or number
We've got
6.
a season of absolute bangers, right? And then it's just
It could happen. Theoretically, a team in the playoff position in the championship could theoretically be better than the Premier League team. They might just never get promoted.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think we need like a Zoom episode to
plan it all out.
redo our entire table.
Well, you know what? We'll plan it when season 2 wraps up. Which is
We're going to need you to do some pie charts and
We'll do it. We'll do some.
what do they call the bell curve charts and stuff? Yeah, you love that stuff, man.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll let you go
Data
nuts.
visualization. That's what it's all about. Anyways, trivia.
All right, let's do this. So the recap. Today, Adam will be playing for Pride. We will give him the guard of honor because Regev and I respect the tradition.
Hey.
Thank you. You're too kind.
So Adam sits at the top of the Matchday Matinee, I don't want to say table, but scoreboard with 12. I'm sitting just behind him with 9, and Regev is sitting behind me at 8. Now, because I'm the quizmaster, I will not be able to gain any points this round, so Regev can leapfrog me and possibly come in second with a possible 3 points.
Should be quite a comeback, to be fair.
Going for those Champions League places like Newcastle in this movie.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. So obviously all these questions are going to be Newcastle related. It's a
awesome.
very heavy theme, and I didn't want to make it too easy for you guys.
Adam probably knows a lot about Newcastle because his brother supports them.
Is that true?
We'll see. Yeah.
How did that happen?
And my best man. Oh, right. Okay. So let's get this out there, right? So for whatever reason, we live in Portsmouth. My brother is not into football when we were younger. But he really got into football Euro 96, as most of the country did. Loved Alan Shearer, who got the golden boot, decided he was going to support Blackburn, who were champions 2 years before. Then Alan Shearer moves to Newcastle. So then my brother, being a kid, is like, all right, well, I'll just support Newcastle. And then he's stuck with it ever since. It's a really weird story. Me and my dad don't understand it because I support Portsmouth. My dad's from Sheffield, has always supported Sheffield United. And then we've just got my brother who doesn't support a town that we've ever lived in or that we have any ties to. But he's a very passionate Newcastle fan. So, yeah.
It's all right.
Interesting.
The best man at my wedding is also a Newcastle fan as well.
I feel like the odds are stacked against me.
We'll see how this goes.
So Adam's gonna get all 3. I just have to hope that Regev won't get it. Adam, you can get as
How many
as you
do I
want.
do? I need all 3 to leapfrog you?
No, you just need
just
2.
Ooh, all right.
Okay.
Let's go.
So I'm only giving you guys 3 questions. We're playing for Pride today, so I didn't want to go all 6 out. But question number 1, I'm going to let Regev go first.
Yep.
Against who did Shearer score 5 Premier League goals in 1 game? It's a record he shares with another former Magpie, Andy Cole. I will give you options. I'm not going to be that cruel.
Okay.
Was it Wimbledon, Leeds, Leicester, or Sheffield Wednesday?
Leicester City.
Okay. Adam?
Yeah, I'm going to say Leicester. That's the one that popped in my head when you read out the question, so I'm going to say Leicester.
Beautiful. It was not Leicester. It was Sheffield Wednesday. And this was Bobby Robson's first game in charge at St. James Park. It was an 8-0 win.
Oh, 8-0.
September 1999.
We ran that game on YouTube recently. I watched the highlights to it. Damn it. Yeah.
All right. It's all
The
the
weekends back.
So far, so good.
I need to have a Santiago Munez style approach
Adam.
to this trivia.
Yeah.
Which of these is not a nickname given to the club? The Magpies, the Toon Army, the Toon, or the Black and Whites?
Oh, I feel like this is a trick. So definitely Magpies. They definitely chant Toon Army. Black and Whites. So is it the Toon? Because that's just what they call the people from there. But then I've also never heard the Black and Whites. I'm going to say the Toon. It's a trick. That's what they call the people, not the fans. The fans of the Toon Army. Yeah, I'm going to go the Toon.
Okay. Regev?
Yeah, so I'm also thinking around the same lines. I think the Black and Whites, just based off of their strip, Magpies and Toon Army, I definitely know. Toon Army makes sense because it's an army of the people from the Toon. The Toon are not the people. The Toon is the area. The Toon is Newcastle. So I don't think they're called the Toon. So see.
You guys gave really long explanations for unfortunately wrong answers. It's actually the Black and Whites.
Can we double check, man? I don't think they call Newcastle United the Toon.
They're called the Magpies because they play in They're called the Magpies because they play in black and white. And the Toon comes from the Newcastle accent pronunciation of town. And according to what I looked up, they're called the Toon as a nickname.
The Toon. That's fine. We'll take it.
Okay. So I'll give you guys an easy one for the next one. So we spoke a lot about the soundtrack in this movie. It was phenomenal. And a lot of that came from Oasis. Which club do brothers Liam and Noel Gallagher support? Is it Newcastle United? Is it Manchester United, Manchester City, or Leicester?
Me? Or yes,
Go for it, Regev.
Man
City.
City. Man City.
Adam?
Yeah, Man City, yeah.
Yeah, that was an easy one. Man City. I thought it would be, it confused me too because there's a lot of music from Oasis in this.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, I know they're supporters of Manchester. Are they from Newcastle? But no, they're not.
No.
Right? So it's just very random that they would do that.
So that would have been another nice touch, eh?
Okay.
So that would have been another nice touch if they, of course, they showed Newcastle, which was a great advert for the town of Newcastle. They showed the people with the authentic accents. I think it would have been nice if they, showed some local bands and local music. I think would have gone to have a nice touch.
Yeah, I was struggling when I was watching it. I was trying to think of bands whose music would kind of fit with it, and I guess the guy from Brian Ferry from Roxy Music, Girls Aloud, one of them was from Newcastle. There was the guy from Dire Straits. Like, there's not that many bands that could kind of fit this kind of. The only one I could think of was Maximo Park, but I think they might have been a bit later than this film. Like, they weren't that famous.
What about the guy from AC/DC that made the cameo?
Yeah.
Is he from Newcastle? Is that why?
I suppose, yeah, he was. I suppose you could have had Black and White playing. No, we're Back to Black, right?
Back in Black. No.
Yeah, that's it.
Back in Black. Yeah. Even Kasabian. They're not from from Newcastle either.
No.
Yeah, it's weird. I Googled Oasis and Newcastle just to see if there was a connection, and apparently they just had there was a big fight in Newcastle at one point at an Oasis concert, I think.
Ah.
Some kind of weird backstory. But that draws to a close this season's trivia, and that leaves us with a final score of Adam with, is it 13?
13, yeah.
13, and Regev and myself tied in second at 9.
Nice.
So we will have a playoff match. No, I'm joking.
No,
we'll settle with a tie.
Yeah.
If it came down to an actual winner, we would have had a playoff, but Adam came away with the full 3 points.
Decided on a coin toss. Cool. That brings us to this table, the final table rankings. Where do we place this movie? And what are the final rankings going to be? So I'm going to read it off the top really quickly, just to let you know where everything is. So in number 1 since the first week, The Damned United. In number 2 since the second week, Mike Bassett, England manager. In number 3, we have Victory. In number 4, we have Bend It Like Beckham. In number 5, we have Diamantino. In number 6, we have Ultras. Number 7, we have Pele, Birth of a Legend. Number 8, we have The Cup. Number 9, we have Final Score. Number 10, we have Kicking and Screaming. Number 11 is Empty. And number 12, we have United Passions. That's going to most likely stay there today. Where are you guys placing this movie? Adam, we'll start with you.
So it's definitely top 4.
Yep.
I think it's a better movie than Victory.
Ooh.
Like, as much as I really liked Victory, I liked the football, there's still things I'd like. The Stallone thing still wrangles me. Like, his character was really funny and stuff, but the fact that he was like the most unconvincing goalkeeper kind of made that hard to believe. And it made it, that was harder to believe than Santiago's like meteoric rise was to believe. And the fact that he was like an unsigned non-EU player, I could get over all that stuff. Where I'm struggling, and which I would want to wait and hear what you guys say, is whether it's better than Mike Bassett. It's definitely a better made film. It has its own jokes in it that are pretty funny. But I don't know if I have the heart to be the one that says it's better than Mike Bassett.
Make your call. Make your call.
I don't think it's better than Damned United either. No. So it's between second and third for me.
Mark?
Yeah.
I'm glad Adam went first. I'm going to say that because I'm going to put it above Mike Bassett.
Ooh.
Mike Bassett was really good, but it's almost like the Austin Powers of soccer movies.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Where you watch it, you enjoy it, you laugh. But
I feel like it's like the Office of soccer movies, more than the Austin.
Yeah, okay, that's a good analogy. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it still is goofy comedy though.
And it's like my favorite. The Office is like my favorite show.
But also, if you watch it compared to that Impossible Job, that Graham Taylor, it's such like a companion piece. Yeah. That's what makes it good. It is like a workplace. The Office is a good analogy. It is a really Like, granted, it goes weird places, but it's a really good like workplace documentary. Like,
So the first thing I'm definitely going to do after our season is done is rewatch Mike Bassett.
Yes, me too.
Because looking back on it, I think it's hilarious. I'm kind of judging. I think this is like maybe the second movie, along with Victory, that I've kind of dangled in front of Mike Bassett, but I don't have the heart to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering if my memory is as strong as I think it is when it comes to Mike Bassett. It's really good. I hate to bump it down to third.
But you're going goal at second?
I'm putting goal at second, and I'm willing to hear you out on where you're putting it. But it sounds like you're going to put it at fifth. So I'm curious.
Who's going to put
go for it, man? You?
Me?
Yeah.
What did I say I was going to put it in fifth?
Well, every time Adam mentioned, you said Adam mentioned Victory, putting it above Victory, and you huffed a little.
I oofed. Okay.
and then
No,
gave it
I
a
was
lowest.
oofing because you guys thought Victory was really good. I don't think Victory is very good, to be honest.
Right.
I don't actually like that film, and I think it doesn't actually, like, when you have the Damned United, Mike Bassett, and Bend It Like Beckham, I don't think Victory should be anywhere in that conversation.
I don't think Bend It Like Beckham aged well at all, though. That's the thing with me, though. Looking back on that movie now, watching it again, is just sour. Yeah. I don't want to say sour milk. That's harsh, but.
So I don't know how to articulate this because Victory is in third, but what I would do would be Damned United first, Mike Bassett second. That's a lock for me. And then Bend It Like Beckham for me would be in third. And I don't know if I'd put Goal below Bend It or above Bend It. Most likely what I would have done is Damned United, Mike Bassett, Goal, then Bend It Like Beckham.
I don't know, man. I think you're on an island with Bend It Like Beckham.
No, but I put it above Bend It Like Beckham. I put Goal above Bend It Like Beckham.
So then does Goal go in third? If me and Raghav are both saying that Damned United and Mike Bassett are the top two,
does Goal go above Bend It Like Beckham?
Yes, for me, it does.
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Does Goal go above Victory?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Does Goal go above Mike Bassett, England manager?
No, for me.
Adam?
No. That's like the most unconvincing no ever, but I feel
that's all we
harsh.
needed.
It's so
We needed
well
2 out
made
of 3
and
votes.
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no. Mike Bassett. I watched Mike Bassett before every World Cup without fail. I can't. This is only like the 4th time I've seen Goal since it came out. So
I
obviously
laugh
it's sticking
every
me
time I
much.
see Mike Bassett. Like
It's
laugh
so
out
good.
loud when I see Mike Bassett.
I gotta watch it again.
Yeah, man.
The locker room scene where he's going nuts, and then the narrator afterwards.
Dude.
They went on to lose 4-0.
Victory's kind of messing up this table for me, man.
I don't think so, man.
I think it'll drop lower eventually one day. I don't think
Victory?
it'll stay in the top. Yeah. There's other films that we might cover that are better than it.
Shaolin Soccer. I want to see it up there.
You know what we can
Mean
do for next
Machine.
season? If this is just an idea, I don't know if we want to actually pursue this. We can have the season 2 table, but we can also have a combined table that we do alongside.
So not to plug my own work, but that's exactly how Joypads for Goalposts is.
There you go.
At end of every episode, there's like a season 2 table. So this will be the champion for season 2. And then there's also a combined table.
Yeah.
Does make it a bit messy, but yeah.
All right, we can do that.
We can do something like that. We have plenty of time to think about it.
All right.
That's awesome.
Exciting. We have our final season 1 table ranking. Or Gab, do you want to read it off?
I can read it off. So the Damned United to number 1. So this is the final ranking. Our champions are the Damned United. So congratulations to the Damned United. Its director, brilliant football movie, one of the best of all time.
Runaway leaders.
Runaway
Top
leaders.
from day one.
25 points ahead.
I almost feel bad that we did it in the first episode because we hadn't really found our groove at that point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can revisit these movies every once in a while and do
definitely.
like mini episodes and stuff. But our champions this year, the Damned United, in the Champions League place in number 2, Mike Bassett, England manager. Number 3 is Goal, The Dream Begins. Number 4 is Victory. Number 5 is Bend It Like Beckham. Number 6 is Diamantino. Number 7 is Ultras. Number 8 is Pele, Birth of a Legend. Number 9 is The Cup. Number 10 is Final Score. Number 11 is Kicking and Screaming. And the gap in points is a lot between 11 and 12. And then number 12 is United Passions. So United Passions are like, who was it, Sunderland that year when they got like 5 points or something? I don't know.
more like
McCarthy, when Mick McCarthy was manager.
Yeah.
Was it Milan that had points taken away because of match fixing?
I can tell you what.
Yeah, a whole bunch of teams did. Yeah, didn't they?
A bunch of teams actually,
Scandal,
right? Actually, no, they got relegated to Serie B.
Yep.
It's more like that.
Which is actually very on brand because United Passions obviously talks about a corrupt organization, and that was a corrupt organization, and they both were in the basement. So
yeah, as a nonprofit, it's a complete misuse of funds to make that movie in the first place. So
complete
make a
misuse of
vanity project,
time,
yeah.
actually, if you ever decide to watch it.
yeah,
But yeah, that's our final table for season 1 of Matchday Matinee. Just like to say thank you for everybody on joining us for this journey. It's been fun. We've been finding our groove. How about you guys? What are your thoughts on season 1?
It's been fun going back and watching films like that I hold quite dearly to me, like films that I genuinely like, and then going back and watching new films like I never would have found Diamantino, I don't think, if it wasn't for us doing this show. So it's been really fun. So I hope people have enjoyed listening as well, and we'll be back with season 2 and hopefully find some other unexpected gems along the way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I'm probably the casual of the group. I know, like, Regev, diehard Liverpool, Adam, Portsmouth, right? I came into football much later. Like, I watched Portugal early 2000s. My first club team was TFC. So every week we watch a new movie. It's an opportunity for me to research that real world team and the players of that era and everything. So I've been loving this, and the discussion with you guys. I appreciate it, man. We've been having such a good time. I love it.
Awesome. Because, you opened this episode, Mark. Do you want to end it?
Yeah, definitely. So Thank you to everyone for joining us on our first season of Matchday Matinee. We hope you enjoyed every minute with us. We're sorry if episodes went a little long, but we just loved discussing them, and we want you guys to reach out to us. Let us know what you want to see in season 2. Keep an eye out for a few bonus episodes in the off season. We will figure out how long we're going to have an off season for. I don't believe we've determined that amount yet, but either way, we're going to have content filling that gap. And as always, you can catch us on Matchday Matinee on Twitter, matchdaymatinee.com. And boys, where can they reach you, Adam?
Flameboy84 on Twitter is where I'm posting the most stuff at the moment.
For myself, I was taking a social media hiatus, but you can now find me at Raghav Sandhu on Twitter.
Oh, he's back.
It was actually reactivated during the course of this episode, I'm not going to lie.
Okay. So I have to go back into the episode descriptions and add your @ symbol again, because it was sending people to a 404 not found.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do. Just, take your time with it. It's no rush. But yes, you can find me at Raghav Sandhu on Twitter. And of course, if you need to reach out in regards to Matchday Matinee, please use the contact form on our website or reach out to the main Matchday Matinee Twitter handle.
Yep. So reach out to Regev, let him know that Beckham is not as good as he says it is. I'm just going to throw that out there. But no, thank you to everyone who joined us. This has been Matchday Matinee from the Terraces to the Theater of Dreams. That's it.
Goodbye now.
See ya.